We have two members. Kristen is stuck in her dirt road. She'll be here as soon as she gets unstuck. Joe will be a few minutes late. And Kenna is working on earning her first million. With no further ado, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. Well, I think in the interest of time, I have just a few slides prepared, and I want to ask the school committee next. Thank you. So what I said is that in the interest of time, next Wednesday is the evening we've set aside for the school committee to deliberate on the budget. And what the administrators would like to ask you to do is to think of questions that, or information that you would like to have that would help facilitate your deliberations. We really make that evening go a lot smoother if you have the information necessary, so you don't have to, when we come back on the 18th, wait to see if questions need to be answered and you need more information about certain articles. And then we thought it would be helpful in terms of process to go article by article. Start with Article 1, go through those deliberations, Article 2, Article 4, and so on. If that will work with the school committee.
Sounds good to me.
And then on the 18th, for some members who have been through this process before, there are the formalized articles that the school committee is asked to vote on and then send them to the town council. And that's for each article, there's a certain amount of money for school nutrition and so on. So if that sounds like a plan, that is what we are hoping for. The auditors are planning to come and present on the 18th. So there'll be two activities, one for the school committee that night, one to listen to the audit presentation, and then the second to actually vote on the proposed 2021 budget. If you don't get through all of the content that evening, either because the auditors took longer than we anticipated or there are some unresolved questions regarding the budget, we have right now reserved March 25th as the last evening for the school committee to take action on the proposed budget. It's kind of the evening we've been holding on to if we really needed it. And I thought before I proceeded with the remainder of the articles, Articles 6 through 11, if any school committee members have questions thus far that they would like information about or would like to have answered.
Well, I know what I'm going to ask, just to keep it simple and clean for me, is I'll just, as we go article by article, I'll just want to know what, well, glad to see you. Did you have to walk here?
Almost.
I just want to know what the big changes are so that I can address those quickly and easily. In each article.
We can do that. Just a summary, just to very quickly catch you up to speed. One of the things that I've asked the school committee to do is to either email or call with questions before the deliberations on the 11th, so that people have that information at the ready and they can really have a substantive conversation about the budget. So we make that request to everybody. As you go through it, you'll have all the data tonight, and what we can answer ahead of time or at the meeting is pretty helpful. So with that, shall I proceed?
Yes, please.
I'm going to go back over to the PowerPoint. And I didn't run new slides because there aren't many, and quite honestly, I'd like to cut down on the amount of paper you have. So the next article that we're going to talk about is Article 6. And Article 6 is central office and the school committee. When we get to the regular meeting tonight, I'll tell you about this article in particular. It's in really good shape. But for the discussion for budget, it looks like it's a little fuzzy. Does it look fuzzy to anybody else? Sorry, again.
A little bit is readable.
All right, well, so in this particular article, the notable changes are, one, I have reduced the school committee legal line from 30, which is where it's at right now, to 15. So far, knock on wood, this year you've used about $1,000, which is pretty good, out of the 30 that you had budgeted. Last year, you used about 4, so I'm going to recommend that for 2021, you reduce that line to 15. I also think it's important, though, that as you consider that, you realize that you've been able to manage that line as well as you have because your negotiations team from the school committee, Mrs. Shumway and Mr. Petrowski, have done yeoman's work keeping your cost at a minimum regarding your legal fees. I think I've estimated it periodically throughout the year. You'd be in the thousands if they did not have the talent, you didn't have the talent at the table that you do. They're able to do a lot of work that you don't have to hire Drummond to do. So that's a huge help for the school committee. I'm recommending that we reduce an accounts payable position, just as a brief reminder. When I started in July of 18, we had a full-time accounts payable person, a part-time accounts payable person, and a superintendent who was also the business manager, in addition to an HR person. And we had some pretty significant turnover in the superintendent's office. In July, the part-time person took a full-time job for a phone company. The HR person was offered a position in it's either Leeds or Green town office and left to do that. She'd come from the municipal sector and was very comfortable there. And then in October, we lost our accounts payable person. So we had a lot of turnover in the first 6 months. And evaluating those positions, Mr. Petrowski, come on in. Nice to see you. We decided to go with a part-time accounts payable person, and I hoped it would work. I still function as a business manager, but as you saw later here, we really need more capacity in the superintendent's office. And I'm going to recommend hiring a full-time bookkeeper. And so while this looks like a reduction, and it is, it's actually a half because I'm recommending the addition of a full-time bookkeeper. Under school board's professional services, you don't need to hire another superintendent. You've done that this year. That's what the $6,000 was for, so I've removed that. And then the central office superintendent, Mr. Hodgkin's package is less than mine was, and so you're picking up some money there. So that essentially is the school board central office. And just as a footnote, at the end of last year, we were able to prepay certain items from this line, from this article, and if we have the resources, we'll do that again. We prepaid your school board legal liability, we prepaid your dues, in an effort to try to keep this year as solvent as we possibly could. So you may have, that may be in even better shape. So as I just mentioned, we need, in my estimation, a bookkeeper. This is one of the few districts that I've worked in where there is no business manager, no director of finance, no director of facilities and grounds, no tech director. You have very lean resources in the superintendent's office. Talking with the auditors, one of their recommendations is to go forward with some sort of a bookkeeper. Ideally, you'd have either a part-time or a full-time business manager in addition to your superintendent. I don't see the resources, quite honestly, in this district to do that. I know Mr. Hodgkin has a background in finance, so I think that'll be helpful to you. So, but for the time being, I do believe for 2021, you need a full-time bookkeeper. And by the way, one of the things that I haven't underscored enough is that when I put salaries up here, those reflect salaries and benefits. It's not just salaries. Sometimes people see a number, they go, oh, we're going to pay. No, this reflects salary and benefits. So going on, transportation. Quick FYI, this is also under my superintendent's report tonight. The transportation bids went out. We sent them to, where's Colleen, half a dozen companies, 4, 6 or so. They're due back April 30. We'll see what we get. Talking with other school districts who have vendors, most of them are between 5 and 6, 5 and 7% increase. The increase is not being driven by fuel, it's being driven by driver costs. So we'll see what our proposals, when they are returned to us. As you may recall, back in December, I asked for the school committee's authority to send out those bus bids with 2 required options. Those 2 required options are, 1, the package as it is, the district owns its buses and the vendor leases them back from us. Option 2 is the vendor owns the whole shooting match. They own the buses, they own the drivers, and there's no lease arrangement. So bidders are asked to do that. Just as a follow-up, back in, seems like winter, I let the school committee know that we had applied for, through the Maine Department of Education's Transportation Department, new buses. I applied for 3. I'm embarrassed to say I'm 0-3 at this point in time. We were not eligible for funding for any of them in round 1. The department has 2 rounds for buses, transportation costs, round 1 and round 2. And essentially round 2 is for the people who decide in round 1 that they don't want their bus. That money goes back into the till and you get round 2. We could be in a very good position for round 2, and that I won't know until the end of March, beginning of April. So we'll see. When I talked to the department, they thought that we were probably in a good position for 1 bus, but that's it. And just as a reminder, back in 2011, when the district first used a vendor to start putting together its transportation needs, or meet its transportation needs, you owned all your own buses and they were relatively new. So here we are, what will be 9 years later, you still own most of those buses. You replaced very few of them, and so if you do the math, your fleet is considerably older and more tired than it was 9 years ago. So you got to think about whether that's in your interest to own your own buses. What I've asked for in the bids when I put them together was that the vendor should give you a credit for whatever, if you trade something against your first year busing lease. So I've anticipated an increase of about $32,000. I think, quite honestly, that might be low. We'll see. That's a 5% on the bus contract. Again, we'll see where they come in. So under maintenance department, one of the things that I touched on the last time we had a budget or school board meeting was that the grade school is going through oil. It's crazy. So we are going to be, I predict, at least $20,000 over on the oil line. It's a big school, it's an old school, it's a lot of buildings cobbled together, and the oil line has been underfunded for quite a while. So my recommendation will be to increase that by 20. The second item is the cleaning contract. We have a vendor who provides services to the school district, FMS. The FMS contract is up in June of this year, June 2020. We'll send it out probably the end of this month, and we'll see where we get. We've estimated an approximate 5% increase to that. As you recall, it went up 8% January 1st. This is another area that is pretty significantly impacted by the increases to minimum wage and supply and demand of labor. So I would expect that this is going to go up, not significantly, but significantly enough. We have a truck payment. The school committee is aware that in August of this past year, the truck passed away. We had to get another one. And therefore, we went out to bid. We now have a new truck, and so we have a truck payment. We are working with Androscoggin Bank. They were good enough. They've done this for us before, where the first payment wasn't due until July 1st, 2020. So essentially, we went from December until July without making a payment. But anyway, so that will be something that will have to come due. I anticipate we started using contracted services on a substitute basis last year for things like mowing and plowing, and I anticipate that might continue. We only use that when our staff is not able to get out, and that has happened. Those are primarily things like weed whacking, mowing, making sure the fields are ready for summer use, and so on. And then the reductions, one, district-wide maintenance staff. I wish, and I've done this for decades, that I never had to make any reductions to a school budget. It's just unpleasant. However, as I sat through many council meetings last year and watched our budget get defeated the first go-around, I realized that we needed to be quite modest in what we were requesting. And so to remind folks that we are requesting a 2% increase from this budget to next budget, and we had to make some hard choices around different areas of personnel. As we started this budget presentation and conversation, I told you what the priorities were, And unfortunately, we had to make some hard calls. When I say we, it's the administrative team and myself, and ultimately it's the superintendent who makes these recommendations to you. So that's maintenance. Debt service, the big number here is our bond for the high school. It's coming down, which is great. We don't have as much to pay, but the flip side to that is we don't get as much money from the state. So they pay our debt service, a portion thereof. This is our payment that we've estimated for next year. For revenues, this is already in your packet. I didn't create this slide again. Our revenues are generated primarily from general purpose aid, which is the money that flows to districts through the state of Maine Department of Education. This year, we have done better than I thought we were going to do. I was quite pessimistic about it, but they lowered the mill rate, which is a point in your favor, and they put more money in the formula, which is another point in Winthrop's favor. We were up against a declining enrollment, and what I call our weighted counts are down. Special education, free reduced lunches, and so on are all down. So that ends that, and that went pretty quickly. Since we have time, someone could grab the lights. Questions that the school committee has to this point?
Questions, folks?
Someone?
So in our discussing the changes to maintenance, and I completely understand the need to keep costs down and our overall increase nominal, and I applaud you and the administrative team for doing that. My question around maintenance is that, as far as I know, we're waiting for the results of the architect's study to determine what we're going to do in the long term, in the future, with our buildings. So that seems to me that we're going to be continuing in our current spaces for next year, the year after perhaps. And because they're aging, that they need a lot of love. And so I'm nervous that making that decision to reduce our daytime maintenance person and having 2 for 3 buildings is going to overwhelm the needs that our buildings are going to require. So I know that in your discussion there must be a thought process of what that's going to look like, and I think I just need more information as to how that's going to work. I know that last time you said that they would report to the superintendent, the 2 remaining maintenance people employed by the district, and then they would, as a team, somewhat take on tasks that are assigned to them. Are they giving up certain responsibilities? You talked about the contracted services, so I just want to get the whole picture, if you would, please.
I think it's a great question. One of the things that the new superintendent is going to have to do a better job than I did is supervise the maintenance staff. I started having monthly meetings. I started working with them to see what major projects that we have. I work very closely with the principals to see what the daily work looks like. But it's going to have to be more like a strike force. So in other words, today we need to go and we need to take the brush from the back of back of the middle school to the transfer station. And I've asked them for what they do on a daily basis to get a sense of what their work is about. And I'm also talking with the principals to see what it will look like in the buildings if there is just 2 maintenance people in the district versus 3. It's a different model undoubtedly. We went to a different model with technology, which I'm recommending going forward as well. And instead of having 3 individual silos of resource, you have a district resource. And you do have to think very differently about how you're going to use that resource.
Anyone else? You're pretty quiet.
So maybe we can get a jump on the discussion for the 11th. What information would be helpful to the school committee that we can have either prepared now or then that will help with that discussion?
I think we need more, you won't have information on the transportation bid at that time.
That's
So
correct.
we won't know what that looks like. I think, to piggyback with Ms. Shumway, I'd like to know how that's going to work. I'd like to know a little bit more about what the principals think will be the nuts and bolts. The principals have had their own custodians or their maintenance folks in their buildings. So especially in the grade school, if we have body fluids problem with those youngsters, I see our administrators doing more cleanup. I mean, that's one of the first things that goes through my head. And I would like to not have that as a result of this cut kind of thing. So how will that be handled? I'm assuming that there would be something like the principals are all going to have like a Google Docs document that rotates all around. I don't know what I'm talking about now, but
I don't either. Wondering where you're
but
going with
that all the principals can see at one time, and they can prioritize their jobs, and that the two maintenance folks can see those and do their thing. But our maintenance people are not going to, I don't check in with the superintendent every day about what they should be doing. Do you envision that?
I think there will have to be a master schedule, and somebody will need to direct not only the work of the maintenance staff, but also the technology staff.
See, that'll probably be a Google Docs, right?
I think it will be, if I had stayed, it would be some sort of a schedule that said, this is where I can expect to find people on this day, this day, this day, and this is how we anticipate, whether it's big projects. For example, the MEAs are coming around, it's a big project we got to roll out to
Right.
make sure that all the computers are ready. One of the things that I've talked with the maintenance staff about is how do we free them up to do some district-wide projects instead of mowing the lawn. They spend on average each 2 or 3 days a week to mow the lawn. And when you do the math on that resource, it's a tremendous amount of time and money. And could that be better spent someplace else?
And that's why that contractual services is up at 20,000.
That is why that's up. Because there are things, when I talked to them last summer, there are things such as painting that doesn't get done, or building locker room projects that they just can't get to because they need to cut the grass. And I'm not disparaging cutting the grass, it's got to be done, but it's just, when you think about it in terms of human capital.
Right.
For example, this year, we've hired Riverside Disposal and Recycling to take our trash to the dump. And the reason that we did that is because it was taking an inordinate amount of human hour power, personnel, to go to the transfer station and back. And so when you look at the cost benefit, it's less. We have those people, we have our staff in the building now, so they can do things that we need to get done. And if I ask the administrators, that's gone pretty well to have Riverside come. So have our staff available to do other things.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Petrowski?
One of the things that came to my mind early, and I was kind of looking back at Joel, because I know he does a lot of work in preparing for activities that take place after school. How much does the maintenance person contribute to getting things ready for the continuation of activities in the school system?
It depends on the week. As a general rule, in the fall and in the spring, I have to go out at 1 o'clock to line the fields. Troy does quite a bit for me in the fall up top for the soccer fields, just because I can't line them both, as well as field hockey. So I would say, I guess I don't know what you're looking for as far as like an hourly thing, or most of it defaults to me. But they do quite a bit to prepare the fields by mowing them. They do mow the grass.
So they do all the mowing, correct me if I'm wrong. They do all the mowing. Hopefully it's done by 1 so you can get out there and line.
Yes.
Or line. And then in the winter, they put the baskets up and down, pull the bleachers out. No?
No.
You do all that?
I do that with help of the kids.
Yep.
Yeah. They're really helpful.
Yeah, really helpful.
Really helpful.
Putting out, breaking down and stuff. But I will say in the fall and spring, as far as specific game preparation, that is part of my job.
Okay.
Well, it does, because I totally agree with your comments about, I'm concerned about how much more the administrators will have to do to make up for that one missing person. And but I also agree with the superintendent that moving to Riverside saved us a lot of time. I mean, it's a time issue as to what they do, what they clean, what they can respond to. And I don't know if we can just, with 2 people, get them to respond to everything that happens in the grade school, let alone the other schools.
I think it's going to have to be a different world. There's going to have to be, like Dr. Brown said, some sort of giant schedule, common schedule, and then some way when there is a semi-emergency from a child in the hallway, they have to be able to be called up, or I guess our principals are going to do that, I don't know.
If I might, I think some of our administrators do that now.
Well, I think they do, but I'm not in favor of making them do it more, if we can help it. That's just like,
I believe in, if you don't have the answers tonight on this is obviously fine too, because moving forward, but in both the grade school and the high school budget, there was 19,000 for like professional development and staff courses and things like that. Is that for a total of 38, or is that 19 and 19? Because I know in the past when budgets freeze, teachers can't take courses in the spring, or they can't, they can't do summer courses because the budget's been frozen. So is that an increase from last, or that's not true?
In terms of the courses, by contract, we have to pay for 6 credits per year, so that always goes through, we have the money somewhere.
Yep.
The big change is that it used to be in Title II, and we now have it in the local budget. So that's those amounts that you're seeing. And that's tuition reimbursement and also conference registrations.
So the budget wasn't frozen on?
Not
courses?
on tuition reimbursement.
Right, but if you wanted to take, like, there was a conference, is that the same pool of money or no?
No,
That's different money.
We have discretion over that.
Okay. Thank you.
our overall budget increase is 2%. However, the local share is 3.5%. That 0.5% is due to the added $50,000 that we've chosen to put in the S&P article.
It's a big part of it, yes.
Where the town council has asked us to stay at 3%, and I just wonder what's going to happen with that 0.5% there.
Has the town council asked us to keep the local appropriation below that, or the budget?
No, I'm referring to you because they haven't told me anything, but I think it was in a meeting with Jeff that you had.
I haven't been given any formal notice to keep the budget between any parameters. This is only listening to council dialogue, citizen feedback, in the public meetings that I've been at.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like there's a big appetite this year for the same budget increase that there was last year. Maybe I misread that, but if so, tell me now. Because
Oh, no, that our budget increase last year was still just 2%.
We were more modest as compared to the town's
Yep.
side of things. They I think we were a little more than 2.
The second time that we went to vote, was that a little bit more than 2 still? Yeah.
We picked up a little bit more money in general purpose aid, which is very helpful to us, but we've lost some ground in some of our other revenues. I think that considering we had a nearly $400,000 increase in insurance and benefits, the district's done pretty well to manage that and bring in a very reasoned budget. I believe that the positions that we've asked for, grade 3, the halftime position here, and some of the other, what I think are very modest changes, are ones that the district truly needs. And I think, and I've said this to you before, it would be irresponsible of me if I presented an SNP budget that I know is short.
Absolutely.
That has been done before, and we incurred a sizable deficit at the end of last year. And I don't, of course, you're the policymakers, and you'll decide at the end of the day what you want to present. But if you choose to run a program, if you choose to fund a program for less than it actually costs to run, you're going to have a deficit. There's just no way to get around that.
No, I don't think any of us choose to do that. Thank you. Any others?
Here's a question, in my ignorance. Have you previously discussed the budget as relates to instruction classes?
Say a little more about that.
Well, what I was getting at was, one of the issues that we have discussed here at the board level from time to time is class size. And the second one is, it follows the presentation that was made by Latin students, alumni, and parents, that they would like to see us do something to revive the Latin program, but especially in terms of having the availability of courses for students who would like to take it. And the third one, which I would bring up, is a reminder of, and I'm sure some of my fellow school board members on Saturday night listened to this, where's our band? Why wasn't it there?
And cheerleaders.
And cheerleaders.
I got so many questions about
Cheerleaders were in the
how-
third grade, but they're coming, okay? But seriously, I mean, I'm just bringing up those types of issues because we have discussed them, at least part of them, from time to time, and I don't think this budget can be concluded until we say how we feel about those areas and stuff.
So if I remember the order of your questions, the one was instructionally, and class size, followed by courses at the high school.
Right.
So in terms of instruction, this budget continues to fund important initiatives the board had started, including those around the Director of Teaching and Learning, the curriculum initiatives. It contains money for teachers to work going forward on math and some of the other areas that we've identified as being particularly needy. So that's number one. Number two, in terms of class size, we added a third grade teacher, I think it's third grade, Jeff, to address what we thought were unacceptably high class sizes at the grade school. We asked the high school students what they would like to take and then helped fashion a schedule with that in mind. And being somewhat pragmatic, I did not, and I'm going to take responsibility for this, I didn't staff the high school for classes below 6, 7 kids, 10 kids. And if the board, again, as a policymaker, says that's the direction we want to go in, and we want to keep a nominal increase for Winthrop taxpayers, I will need your guidance about where to go. Because, as I have said, we have a fairly sizable increase in salaries and benefits, and it's deserved. And I don't want to take anything away from that. Our employees deserve the increases that they're going to get. But you cannot fund that and then keep a modest tax rate and keep everything else status quo. So I think we've done a good job to address those three things. I did not include Latin. Latin is not back in as a new course offering. The commitment that I made to the kids who are in the program remains. but I did not open it to new kids because as Mark and I surveyed them, the interest wasn't there. So, anyway, Jenny, you had a question?
Well, no, it was just a comment. Class sizes, a lot of them were in your book, which I found very helpful, so that was nice to see in the book. And then Jana did, last meeting, ask Mr. Campbell about the Latin, and there were a total of, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 children that that indicated some sort of interest, but that's all there are. So out of 9, 3 of them are being taken care of in current courses in Latin, and 6 that indicated interest are not going to be taken care of. And it didn't seem as though 6 was a great enough number in order to add it to the teacher load.
And if I just might to add something, and Josh would like to speak, what kids have said they would like to take are things like SAT prep classes, which I would heartily endorse because that seems to be a pretty big need for us. Something in the computer science, which we offer nothing in right now.
Coding.
Mark, what was another large?
Robotics is another one.
Robotics. So, the sort of the STEM sciences is where the students said they'd like to see more courses. Josh?
Yeah, I really like the survey, by the way. No, but I was just wondering about the Latin. Was the survey also directed to the new incoming freshmen? Or if they would like to see courses in Latin? That's just a little question I had. If that was okay.
I don't think so.
The survey that I set up went out to grades 9, 10, and 11 students.
Okay.
That's right. We didn't ask the incoming freshmen about any courses that they would like to take, whether it was Latin or sciences or something else.
Oh yeah, no, it's just a question about. I didn't know if there was any interest at the middle school level for coming up.
I think at this point it becomes really clear to me that we just cannot continue to try to be all things to all people. We just cannot do it with the financial support that the town is willing to give us. And then that's very hard for me to say. It's unpleasant.
That's the reality. If I might, I think that historically Winthrop has been recognized for having fairly low class sizes, and you're at a point where you're going to have to make some choices, either between very low class sizes, like not low, but low enough at the grade school, and making sure that the kids are in a, was it 17 and under one, Jeff? Is that, K to 5, as opposed to putting the resource in another place. We felt that it was really important to have kids in smaller classes in the lower grades.
And we have to remember that we're down about 35 students from 2 years ago. in our total count.
Just add to that.
Yep.
And I just want to remind people that there was 1 year when we reduced a teacher at the grade school level. We went from 4 teachers at one grade level down to 3, and that class has struggled ever since then. And because the class size was bigger, there were a lot of needs in math, and that class has been behind in math ever since that decision. So could we say that, well, maybe it's just the students in that class? Perhaps, but perhaps it was that there was this choice to increase the class sizes at that one grade level, and the instruction, wasn't able to be, as individualized as it could have been, making the commitment that we're continuing to make now. So when it came to light last year that we had classes at the high school that were running with 4 students in it, it's just not fiscally responsible. And as much as I want our students to have every single opportunity, and as frustrating as it was at the game, that everyone would turn around and look at me and say, and I'm sure you all felt the same way, where are our cheerleaders? Where's our band? How come their enrollment is smaller than ours and they're able to have this? And we can't create something that's not there. If we don't have student interest, if we don't have enough people going out for it, then we can't justify having an advisor or a coach. Along those same lines, I think it was, Jana, you brought up having the flexibility that if there is an interest amongst the students that year to have a club, of having just like this generic stipend to start something. And I like that idea very much, rather than saying, okay, everyone is wondering where our cheerleaders and our band is, so let's start band, let's start cheerleading again, and rather have it be, let's have this fund for, one stipend a year, that if there is a large interest, we can set the parameters for what that is, 10 students interested in forming a new club, and that there is a teacher or an advisor available to run that club, that seems to me that we would be taking into consideration the desires of our current student body, rather than forcing something on it. I also know that for a while we were looking at different models of music instruction, and wondering if that teacher's schedule could be flexible and have like a 0 period at the beginning of the day or the end of the day where there could be a band class taken. And I know that with the changing of superintendents, I don't know where that necessarily went. Perhaps that would be something that we could, maintaining our current resources, try to see if that sort of something would work, because our students can't fit all of these things into their schedule. We found that that last year when we were trying to schedule, that it was difficult with the reductions we made in staff at the high school, that we had trouble having students have their basic courses being met. So anyways, those are just some of the thoughts that I had looking at this budget and as part of this discussion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep. Mr. Petrowski.
One of the things that's been bothering me for a number of years, including years before I got here, has been that we produce this enthusiasm among students, parents, about music and band in the grade school. And I can think of going to a number of the 5th grade presentations, which work out really well. But by the time they get to high school, even though I think there's been attempts at the middle school at doing guitar and some other things, getting kids have done all these things. What takes place? For some reason the kids can't get into, I feel, I've always felt this, because somehow we've scheduled wrong. And I can remember that it ended up in the last 2 years of one of my more recent sons, basically getting together with fellow students and working, I think it was with Mrs. Biddle at the time, off schedule to produce their own music program, and particularly the band program. And some of them were actually quite accomplished musicians. But I think it's just too bad that you invest so much going up through K through 5, and then all of a sudden, that enthusiasm, that parental support doesn't get taken care of, I don't feel, in the next few years. And it's got nothing to do with the band. I think the band thing is that if we have a band, I like to see them in the Memorial Day parades. I like to see them, follow around, do a pep band or whatever they can for the ball games. And I would congratulate those other 2 schools that we saw Saturday night for the way they brought their students and showed them off.
You all set? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Barb Alexander snuck in after we got started, so I just, from the board, congratulations on your election. And thanks for coming. Any adjustments to the agenda, Madam Superintendent?
No, thank you.
Approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Committee special meeting of February the 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Committee meeting of February 5th.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Committee for February 26th.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor? Thanks for remembering that. Motion passes 4 and 1 abstention. You'll see there that under C, personnel, information only, the spring coaches list. Any comments? Ms. Shumway?
Mr. Staunton, for the positions that are to be determined, do we have applicants for those positions at this point?
Yes, Coach Novak and I are hoping to do interviews next week for baseball.
Is it just baseball?
Yes, I believe it's just baseball. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to.
Oh, lots of baseball. Yeah. Superintendent report.
Thank you very much. I would like to start with the finance report. We are about 68% of the year done, which gives us about 32% left. The accounts that I am watching particularly continue to be the oil accounts. We're now pretty much down in the high school to the last 5% on the oil line. I already talked about the grade school, so I don't think I need to continue talking about that. The overall budget, and I guess I think someone asked about a freeze. We did not freeze the budget this year. I don't know how many times that's happened in the last several. I know I froze it last year, so that's a good thing. We are watching in particular Article 1, and Article 1, you may recall at the end of last year, I got overly concerned because we have a very large pay, the last pay in June. And it, depending on people who are leaving, depending on people who are retiring, can often put that article into the red. So we're watching, it's where it's supposed to be right now, but a lot of whether it ends up in the red or black will depend on how many people leave or retire. So far we have just one known retirement. April 1st, right, is the official time when people have to let us know. So we'll wait and see. I think that the real credit for management of the budget goes to the administrators. They get calls from me at least once a day, usually around faucets at the grade school, Mr. Ladd, and why we have to replace so many bathroom doors, or why, Mr. Stoughton, we have to buy so many backpacks again. And they, to their credit, we've changed some of the systems this year, and they have to come in, they have to sign for things, because I don't know whether the pest control people have been in their buildings or not. We get the bill, and I lean on them to make sure that they can say, yes, pest management was here. And so we have a system where they come in, they sign the bills. And it's especially helpful for me with maintenance, but also in special education. Mrs. Lemieux has to sign for things like taxis and special assessments for students. Things that I would have no idea if they were delivered. And so that's another system. One of the things that the school committee often talks with me about as we get ready to do another transition are these systems. And so they're in place, but again, the credit really gets given to them. The auditors are here, hopefully doing the final wrap up for the school, hoping I'll have a draft by the end of the week, maybe early next week. They're coming on the 18th to present to you. That will be the audit for 19. For some of the new folks around the school committee table, we have new auditors. We had a audit company, how long was HR Smith here?
That was long enough. No, you didn't say that. You didn't say that.
A while.
At least 8 years.
And
Well, they did start with us, 8 years.
That was the year we were going to be thrown in jail.
That's
Got a
right.
full
And we
job
started off
item,
with,
too.
yeah, we got the letter from the chairperson of the town council that they were threatening to throw us into jail.
well, I haven't seen any of those sort of messages this year. The new auditors are Runyon, Christina Millette, and they've been working hard and through some challenges. There have been a number of personnel issues. We filed, I think it was in your board packet again, for another extension because the audit just hasn't been ready.
I can't believe they kept giving it to you.
Well, you beg hard enough, they'll give it to you again. The department has been wonderful to work with. They're really very good people, and they understand schools. So anyway, so back to the revenues. I think we're in pretty good shape. As I said, I want to watch Article 1 before the end of the year. The remainder of the articles, including SNP, should come in where we projected them to come in, and Adult Ed should be in the black again. Adult Ed was in the black at the end of 19, first time in I don't know how many years, 4 or 5. So huge credit to Josh. Be happy to answer any questions regarding the finances or the financial report. Anybody? Okay, we'll move on. Okay, the enrollment report is in your packet. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Don't need to spend a lot of time on that. The audit extension I just referenced, we haven't had another audit extension. Hopefully it will be the very last one. Just as an FYI, as you believe I saw in the paperwork, they're pretty serious though. If you don't have an extension, they start withholding your general purpose aid. So you do have to file the paperwork, and we were able to do that. So that concludes my report. Oh, I do have one other thing. So I got to go to a unified basketball game tonight. First time in my decades of being a superintendent that I've got to go to one of these games. I was so impressed. Talk about the right spirit of a game. The kids help each other, they take turns, they wait for somebody else to take the ball. Sometimes they give the ball to the other team so they can get a basket. It's just wonderful. It is really the spirit of why kids should learn and play together. And they have other kids who help them to find their place on the court, to pass to them. And the excitement those kids have when they get baskets is just unbelievable. So if you haven't seen one, I think there's one left. I highly recommend going. It's a real experience. I can't believe I waited so long to go. Thanks.
Gives you a warm fuzzy.
Yes.
Excuse me, is that one left tomorrow?
Yep. Tomorrow's senior day for our seniors.
And what time is it?
3:30.
Chair report, I just wanted to go over candidates night a little bit. Last week, it was fairly well attended, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was pretty well attended. 35, 40 people, would you say? Alexander?
In the 30 to 33 range.
30 to 33. So that was pretty good. The one thing that I did want to report to the school committee is that the balance of questions, please correct me if I'm wrong, the balance of questions were about finances. And actually I would do that candidate tonight a little bit differently, because the candidates had not served on a town council before and really had no real experience with that, and they were all trying hard to figure out how to answer those questions. I think I would have tried to ask or have set some questions that you would have received by email ahead of time and could have prepared for, that didn't include questions, say, about finances. That would be my one suggestion. But for the school committee, lots of questions about finances. So, by the community. I'd like to hear a really quick discussion by the school committee folks about I asked by email your thoughts about a retreat with the new superintendent. A retreat has been suggested by our current superintendent. It's something that a lot of other schools do to get the year started off correctly. And we've just simply never done it here. So your thoughts about that and your thoughts about timing. I'd like to ask, and I didn't warn the superintendent, you know what she thinks about surprises, but perhaps you could just give us a little bit more information about what usually goes on in a retreat and why it would be good for us to do it. Sure.
In my experience, when the school committee holds a retreat, it's typically in a relaxed setting. It's not formal with mics and cameras and those sorts of things. It's an opportunity for the school committee sometimes to do a board self-evaluation. It's an opportunity, if you have a new superintendent, which you will, to talk about your expectations for that individual. make sure everybody, you'll love my line, gets in their lane, and that person has a chance to hear what your wishes, aspirations are for the district. And it can be kind of free-flowing. I would recommend that you have a facilitator, and that allows or frees up the superintendent to be a full participant. One person you worked with before is Elaine Tomaszewski. She did the mission work for you. She did the board training on the candidate selection screening, and she does good work. And she's cheap, so I would recommend that you consider that and set aside probably a half a day, breakfast and a good morning. And I think it will give you a chance to get to know your new superintendent in a venue that's not quite this one. Get everybody off on the right foot.
And would your recommendation be something right there in that first week or two of July? Because we typically don't meet during that.
I would recommend that you meet in July. That was one of the things that was a setback for me, quite honestly, was I interviewed all of you individually, but I didn't get to really see a school committee meeting until the middle of August. And so I think it would be helpful to do something in July.
So then we have everybody's personal schedules to deal with in July. Look at the enthusiasm. So, what do you think, folks? Because Mr. Hodgkin is working on his reentry plan as I speak. Not reentry, his entry plan. Go ahead, Ms. Sherman.
So because I'm part of the executive committee, I felt like having the conversation that three of us had with Dr. Brown to outline what the school committee's goals were was extremely helpful. And I was glad to have that opportunity, and I think that if the entire school committee was to be able to express personally the things that they brought to us as the executive committee, that it would probably be a better feel for the superintendent to understand, priorities of individual people. So I am open to the idea of doing it. I'm not exactly sure how it would all work, with the facilitator, so on and so forth, but those details I don't think are important to get it going, especially because I have had the opportunity to look at the draft entry plan, again, being as part of the executive committee, but not everybody else has. So that would be a good way for them to see it and talk about it and make suggestions or assistance or, what part that they're going to help the superintendent accomplish. So I would be in support of it, although those July days, maybe it could be a rainy July day, especially if it's going to be inside.
I'll see
I
what
would be
Elaine thinks.
flexible with that.
Sue?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are your days in early July?
Free. I can
Really?
make myself available. Yeah.
Mr. Petrosky?
Oh, I'm always available, yes.
What about golf?
Could we have it at night?
Yeah.
No, I think we should have it. I think it would be a good opportunity for everybody to get together and share the things that need to be shared and set the direction, so. We'll make ourselves available.
I'm good, but I'm on vacation the 8th of July. I know the 4th is in between there, and there's hard time scheduling, so, but yeah, I'm definitely for it.
So you're gone the 8th. All right, thank you, everybody.
I think the earlier we schedule it, the better, so we have to
Yes.
put it on the calendar. That would be my only other thought.
Unless, you're not able to schedule some of the things that will come up. Right. Did you want to try to come up with a date right now?
So you're leaving the 8th and coming back when, or?
Coming back the 16th,
Okay.
I haven't got that, I'll be awake.
Yeah, we just announced.
Yeah.
Janet's gonna be, she's gonna be local every
Yeah.
time. She's on vacation.
unplugging. It's a big vacation for me.
Yeah, so if we did it the third week of July, that would be better, I would say.
I think that that would be starting to get late if we wanted to discuss his goals, because he wants to have quite a few, maybe as many as 3 retreats with the admins.
Okay, so,
That's still up in the air.
Are people traveling around the 4th weekend? I mean, I know that's
I'm
hard,
not.
or family, yeah, I mean,
What do we think about the 6th?
the 6th or 7th, since you're leaving the 8th, I am open those days.
as it gets closer, one's rainier.
Okay with Lane Tomaszewski?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're gonna aim for the 6th.
We're going to aim for the 6th.
Okay.
So we'll let people know that. Thank you very much. Committee reports, finance.
Yep. Sue and I did AP warrant 16A and 16B and payroll 17, and we're meeting on Monday to do, hopefully the 2 that are in there, but when we did these last week or so, we were all caught up.
All caught up, that's amazing, congratulations and thank you. Policy committee, we haven't had a meeting, negotiations.
It's continuing the, can't remember, have I reported out since our last meeting? Since our last?
I
No.
don't think so.
So we had a third mediation meeting and there was not an agreement that was met. So the next step is to go to fact finding. We're kind of in limbo with that. The director of the Department of Labor is, he stepped in to try to avoid that, which we're grateful for. So we're still going back and forth and hopefully we'll be able to iron something out in the next week. So,
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So curriculum committee met last week. I was not able to attend that meeting. Mr. Shea wrote up a policy that the committee reviewed, and between comments either at the meeting or via email, the kind of reworking some of the policy.
Homework policy?
Yeah. And then that will be submitted to the policy committee for their review in May.
Great. Thank you. Nope, that'll do it. Mr. Stoneton?
Hi.
All right.
No way. Ms. Shumway, I did want to tell you that we, I don't believe, Ms. Souza, correct me if I'm wrong, have a applicant for JV baseball. I just was quickly looking at the top, so if you know of anybody, that would be very helpful, so. NFHS cameras. So some of you may have heard of the system before. It's what the MPA uses to broadcast tournament games and so forth. I was fortunate enough to be part of a MPA committee where we had someone that worked for them come in and present to us the opportunity to bring the cameras into our schools for sporting events. And I brought it back to some of the coaches, and the basketball coaches and the football coach jumped on it and said that they would like to pursue it. So after meeting with Dr. Brown and talking with her a couple times, we were able to get a pretty good deal where we had a 2-for-1 price. Let me back up, they did some fundraising to make sure that they had the funds to do that. So this is at no cost to the district, what I'm referring to. We were able to get them in time, so it was a 2-for-1 operation, and they're gonna come and install them for us too, which has also been fundraised to be installed. The way it works is that it's through NFHS. As I said, we purchase the equipment, and then what you can do is, as a fan, if you choose to, you can buy a code for $9.99 for the year. And that will allow you to watch any of the games, just home games, just because not all schools have them, for football and for basketball. We can expand this down the road if we want to. The original intent was that it's much easier for the coaches because it has a technology that has algorithms in it, and it will follow the game, and they will no longer need students or anybody to do that for them. It's also compatible with the systems that they use right now, which is referred to as Huddle, where they can upload the games themselves, share them with their students, and break them down and so forth. So That's kind of like the big view of it. We're excited about it. Some questions that I know that you're probably going to have is, how do they make their money? They get a percentage of what, they get a percentage of the $9.99 fee, and that's it. Obviously, they have a home site that if you've ever used these before, they have advertisements and so forth that are there. So there is no annual charge to us. We don't need to send them. There's just an upfront cost of the equipment, and then whatever we sell, they make the money off of. So to me, it seems like a very good idea. Obviously, I wouldn't have brought it forth to Dr. Brown and the coaches, but it's something that I think that we can expand and help the community if they want to enjoy those games. Something that's kind of over here on a side note is we also do graduation in the gym. If you want to have an event, you simply have to get on a computer. I say simply, I haven't done it yet, so we'll see how that goes. But and then you can schedule an event to be broadcast at your choice. One thing that I'm sure that you're wondering too is who has control over this. It is all local control within the school. We decide who we want to allow to, you can remove a code, is what I'm trying to spit out, or you can share what you want. The coaches are very excited because they'll be able to take practices now. That'll obviously be something that's private unless they want to share that with some parents, players, or whatever that may be. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Pretty excited about it. We did, as I said, put the extra money in having them install it, so all the warranties will be there, which is 5 years. And that's pretty much it. Is there anything that you can think of we talked about on this?
Only the security of the camera at the football field in a cage.
Cage, yes. There's a cage. You have to obviously have an internet connection. They have what's called like a reverb, where they bounce the signal back and forth, and they have a cage that will encompass both of those. So the other piece is that we can very easily take it out with a bolt system. So if we wanted to take it right down and put it inside for security purposes, as we know we've had some issues down there this year, we will be able to do that also. So right now I'm hoping to get the gym up and running and just take a look at that, see how that goes, and just kind of take some baby steps with that. But obviously the football piece will be there for us also when we get there. It's just winter still.
Well, if you need any help with the technology, right
I will say that Sierra was really good. They did have a conversation with them and cleared up what needed to be done on our side, and Sierra extended, please let us know when you're going to be doing this, and we can do some tags that we have to get down and do some work for, just to be in the area also, so we're available, so which I really appreciated for them to offer that.
Now, I've got two questions. One from a personal example, which I know others in the community share.
Yeah.
That particular system kept fading out during preliminary basketball games and everything, and so we didn't know the end of the scores and stuff like that. Do they promise never to do that?
No, well, so there's a couple of things. NFHS never actually signed a contract with them this year. So it was not what I would consider as the NPA, it wasn't a priority to them. It was just something that they offered. That's why you had to switch between, then it went to WHOU and then it went to MPBN. NFHS just simply had the feed because the cameras were there and left it open to make a buck.
And WHOU says they're going to expand everywhere.
Yeah, I think there's some things happening with the NPA also that they're switching over their server that will eventually go to the conferences and filter to the community, so everything will be real time across the state. There's some really big technology things going on, and this company is also, I think, a piece of that too. It's called Dragonfly. It's the big company.
I've got their app, by the way, this particular thing.
Did you have two questions, Joe?
Yes, my second one is this. What has been the discussion about impact on attendance?
Impact on attendance? Well, when Dr. Brown and I talked about it, I don't actually think a lot of people are going to take advantage of this. I think they'll still come to games. I really do. So as far as our discussion, that's where I stand. I don't think it's. I think you're going to get the audience of people that probably aren't going to go or can't make it. I really do. And I also think that you'll expand to the Steel family, for example. They go down to Florida, they'll have the opportunity to watch the games. Mr. Campo, when he's home, has mentioned that he will probably do the same. So, yeah. So, anyways, I'm just teasing him. I think that's really who you're going to reach. I don't see this as something that like you're going to have hundreds of viewers. The intent was to really just get a camera in there to assist our programs and it has the option that we can expand it out to allow other folks to watch the games if they can't get there.
I'm a big believer that you have to continually market games because I've attended too many games at home where there have not been as many games as I'd like to have seen. It's kind of like the marketing of saying it's fun to be there, it's convenient.
Sure.
There are a lot of things that I think we have as pluses that a lot of individuals that I used to see at those games could still get there.
Yeah, agreed.
And I was hoping we would grow attendance, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it from a financial standpoint too, I mean, if you buy a pass, I mean, you're spending more than you would on the code, but you could go to all the games. So I mean, if you're looking at financial stuff, I mean.
You never told me about the pass.
It's right there out
She
front.
charges me every time I go in there, okay? Which is fine.
Double it, there you go. Any other questions?
These are revenue, Joe. That's why she
Yeah,
charges you
that's
that
the
one.
point, Russ.
Mr. Staunton?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Bell?
Can it expand to other sports?
Yes, yeah, yes it can, yes it can.
Field hockey or?
Yeah, it can expand to field hockey, it can expand, we can put as many cameras as we want to. It's just, you know, obviously it's something that we're checking out at first, but we were able to finance, you know, through the programs on their own, so it's at no cost to the district. So it certainly would, I don't know if it would be more expensive. I don't know if we get like the deal forever now that we, you know, are with these folks and hit it underneath their sale time. But it's something that we could certainly look into, so. Yeah,
But
yeah, absolutely.
Can you take the camera that's in the gym
No.
during the fall and put it on the field hockey?
No, once everything is set up with
That's
signals
it.
and so forth, it's got to have a direct feed, and that would be set up. So, I mean, it has its own hard drive and everything, you know, it's
If you
basically.
put me in charge of the technology, I've got to better.
Come on up. It'll be a lot easier than me.
Dr. Brown?
Um,
don't think so.
Any other questions?
Just one.
Yeah, sure.
And you may not be able to answer this now, but it's more of, if I wanted to purchase this for my parents who are away,
Yes,
how does that, so would I be able to share a code with them? Or
I
is it
think
something
so.
that they have to?
I think so. From what I understood, and I will get clarification on this because we obviously want that, everything is handled by them themselves, even like the purchase of the code, like you would do it on their website. So I think it's all laid out there for you. But from what I understood from my conversation, you can give the code to 10 people, but it only allows one entry at a time. So if you're watching it and I have the code, I'll be denied entry. I think it's one of those
Yeah,
deals.
you kick each other off.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So.
So just as the seasons are approaching, a suggestion of perhaps marketing
Yeah,
this
yeah.
for the greater community to know and for purchasing for people who are away and
Yeah.
also marketing up those passes.
Yep.
Because I know for sure I would purchase that for my in-laws.
Absolutely.
I feel bad every time they go and watch a game in there.
Be their Christmas gift.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So,
Oh, the tournament passes?
no,
or-
the
Just
general
the school-
every, the home games.
Yes.
Yep.
And doesn't the MPA do something where you can use that pass to go to away games too?
Tournament?
No, regular. I felt like when I was at Pauldale, they had it listed that you can get an MPA pass that you
Oh, I don't
can
know.
use for entry.
I don't know about that. I know that like if you're an MPA member, you have entry to any game.
Maybe that was.
Yourself and one other, they give you two folks, so.
Okay.
I don't know whether you can share it or not, but I just tried to share it with the school board here. So if you get it, try it. I have no idea.
Thank you, Joe.
I know my wife has her own subscription, I have mine, so.
Are you guys okay if I go right into admin open forum?
Sure.
Right here?
Okay.
Okay. So one act is this weekend. Mr. Campbell is going to give you some more details on that. It's on Saturday at 2 p.m. So if you want to join us for that. I think people might have heard boys basketball. They won the regionals as well as the states. Girls basketball, they also won the regionals, but also won the MVCs. Last night we had our senior all-star game, and we had 29 kids for the girls and 31 from the boys, which was from the Mountain Valley Conference. It's their last game. It's really cool. It's actually kind of got the spirit of unified. Thank you for that shout out, because it is the best part of my job. We have the MVC Summit next week, which is all of the schools from the conference will come to Winthrop. We have a gentleman from Proactive Coaching, you may have heard it before. His name is Rob Miller, and he talks to the coaches and the athletes about how to be leaders, positive role models. One of my favorite presentations from him is called Athletics, the Front Porch of Your School. Just talks about those types of things. From that, the night before we have the MVC Summit, we're actually going to have the parents come in because he does a session. I believe the letters went home today, and will be blasted out to the high school folks either tomorrow if they weren't today. I'm not sure because I wasn't at the school until 1:30. But that is an invite to the parents. It's not anything that's mandatory, but we highly recommend it. It's from 6 to 7. It's just basically talking about let the coaches coach, let the kids play, and it's not, he's a fantastic speaker. He's very positive, he's engaging, and it's something that I think is helpful. And then afterwards, all of the coaches from the Mountain Valley Conference will come in for a 2-hour session with them. So he's doing 3 sessions for us, pretty excited about it. Come on up, I feel like he's fantastic. He puts into words what coaching means to folks that get it. Sports Awards night is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. if you want to join us. And then spring sports start the 23rd of this month. Also wanted to mention that the Nordic girls won the Mountain Valley Conference this year, which is the first time in quite a while, so we're very excited about that. Lego Robotics is starting up this month at the middle school. I'm meeting tomorrow with the co-advisor from the school. James Cognata ran in New England this weekend for indoor track and placed, which is a huge deal. Whether you're a freshman or a senior, it doesn't matter. That's quite impressive. And I also wanted to share that our middle school boys made it to the finals in the divisions for basketball on the side. So that's quite a bit. I'm sure I've missed something, but that's all I can think of today in the 15 minutes I had to write down. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Before our next report is school, the school committee would like to, you're good, Joe.
Okay.
No,
I have one more thing.
Well, you're next. We'd like to recognize the attendance of town council member Priscilla Jenkins. Thank you for coming. Pardon me?
Barbara Alexander.
Oh, yes, I already thanked her. Yeah, and we recognized her. Yes, thank you. Joel?
I received an email that was sent yesterday, but I read it today before I came, from Sarah Fuller. She gave a proclamation from the town council congratulating the boys and girls.
I did. I just wanted to add to Joel's comments about the one-act play contest, because last night at the MVC All-Star game, the students who are going to be participating in the one-act play contest were passing out the brownies, popcorn, etc. And I got into a wonderful conversation with them. They're just bubblingly excited about this participation, and I think it's just great. As an old coach, I think it's just great for them. So hope they're very successful. But I also mentioned to them, it'd be nice if you're going to perform that at the school, that we get some notice of it in case we're able to attend.
I think Mr. Campbell might have decided on that today. Is that true, Mr. Campbell?
That is true.
Okay.
Well, for the school performance, it's going to be next Tuesday during blocks. The second block of the day, which is about 10 minutes to 9. But I believe they're also planning an evening performance next Wednesday. I'm looking at Josh. That would be, so it would be the 18th.
2 Wednesdays.
So 2 Wednesdays. So it'll be an evening performance for the public as well.
This time, here we are. Yep. Pardon me? Yep. Yep, John.
I was going to talk about the one act for my own thing. No, but it's a good one act. I'm part of it. It has a really strong message. I really encourage you guys to go. It's really fun. It's about a sensitive topic, school shootings, which is very prominent in our society today. But it's really good, and hopefully we can. I'll talk to Mr. Schoolius. I don't know if the 18th is fully set in stone.
But you're competing
Yes,
Saturday.
Lawrence High School at 2 p.m.
Look at Lauren.
Is that Lawrence?
Lawrence. For the first performance of the session, they have like sessions, and there's 3 sessions, and it's like 2 p.m., 3 and 4, I
And
believe.
you'll be performing it too?
Yes.
Thanks. Did we get the one act straightened out? Everybody good? Yes. Okay.
Good. Mr. Lapp?
Grade school, right before February vacation, we managed to have a couple of snow days, unfortunately. So the 100th day of school got postponed a couple of times. So we actually celebrated the 100th day of school on February 14th, which is also Valentine's Day, which was also an early release day. So it was a pretty exciting day at the grade school. A lot of the students get a big kick out of coming in pretending they are 100 years old on the 100th day. So we had lots of white wigs and glasses and canes and things that I think I'm approaching. Anyway, after we came back from vacation on the 25th, we started one of a couple of it looks like maybe winter activities on the 25th. Preschool had a family sliding party right out back here on our nice hill. We had approximately 25 preschool students, and they all had one or more family members with them. So there were about 50 people that had a sliding party. And then the next day on the 26th, our Title I Family Involvement team, they had what they call a Wonderful World of Winter. They had dog sleds, sliding, and snowshoeing. And we had about 14 students and their families join us for that activity. So 2 really big successes, and the snow's almost gone at this point out there. So we got it in just in time. And then March 2nd, we celebrated Dr. Seuss's birthday, and he would have been 116 years old. So thank you to Mrs. Fitzgerald. She usually heads us up on the Dr. Seuss birthday celebration. We have lots of people running around as Dr. Seuss characters.
Sure. We have done some training about developing progressions of learning. So I met with some teachers today, actually, to start those discussions. It went fantastic. Ms. Shumway already noted that we had the homework policy meeting, and that's come to an end. Before break, I'm also your district assessment coordinator, so I attended some training for the MEA testing coming up. A lot hasn't changed from last year, so it was good. And last month we completed all of our question formulation technique professional learning opportunities with teachers, which I thought was well attended for over the 8 sessions that we had. And that's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chef Aaron?
Hi, this month we'll be celebrating May's birthday on March 18th. For breakfast we'll be having blueberry cake, and lunch we'll be having some local products. We're purchasing from Family Farms of Maine, locally grown chicken. We're having chicken legs with maple glaze and some Penobscot potato pancakes and other Maine goodies. And then on March 26th, I'll be competing in the Maine Farm to School Cook-Off with a high school student, Madison Weymouth, one of the Madison Weymouths, a freshman. And we're going to be competing at CATSI in Augusta. It's an annual event that the Farm to School program holds, where there's teams from all over Maine meet regionally and compete with original recipes using locally grown products. And then they have if you advance, then they have another cook-off later on with the regional winners. And they put out a cookbook every year from that with locally sourced products. So looking forward to doing that.
What's the date of that?
March 26th.
And
I don't think it's a spectator event. Sorry. I'm glad because then I can go stage right. And that's it.
Cross that out. Okay, thank you. I know. You want to test her? Yeah. Ms. Chris?
At the Winthrop Middle School, the librarian, Mrs. Brunette, has been showing book trailers, not movie trailers, but book trailers every Friday morning to boost interests for the students in any new books that she has purchased. We've started floor hockey for intramurals, huge attendance after school. The noontime pickleball tournament is in full swing. Trimester 2 is winding down while MEAs are winding up. Mr. Mark Forden has been a guest speaker in all of the 8th grade social studies classrooms doing Maine Native American studies in the Wabanaki as required by state. And Alice training for all the middle school students is happening this week. All students will be trained by the end of this week.
Chris, I'm not certain if I heard how you did with the badminton.
How did I do?
Yeah.
I didn't get to play. I get to be in the tutorial with the students who can't attend. Saves my ankles.
Oh, yeah.
I also forgot, for the third time, Lisa Gilman has been published in School Arts. She submitted this last year after Jason Cody came at the second year and did snowshoe art with our kids. And so I'm going to give a copy of the magazine, it's on page 12, to Dr. Brown, and she can share it with you.
Super cool. Thank you, thank you. Ms. Lemio?
I just wanted to remind people about the unified basketball, and I think their last game is tomorrow, 3:30, and it's also senior night for them too.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell?
Kate, so I'm going to come up here because Miss Shaw is going to sneak in behind me and set some things up. I'm hard of hearing, so I didn't quite hear all you said, George. So I want to make sure that the name of the play is Declaration.
Declaration.
Yeah, okay, and I'll have Mr. Shale put the schedule up on the website. It is at Lawrence High School, and I believe the sessions, there are 3 sessions in the afternoon on Saturday that start at noon. So it'll be noon 1 and 3, noon 1 and 2. And Winthrop is going at 2 o'clock. So we are excited, and they are very excited. I'm glad you noted how excited they are to get up there and get going. I'm sure they're a little nervous, but. So, Mr. Ladd spoke of storm days. Well, storm days, if you look at the calendar, hit just about every Thursday from the time we got back from Christmas until last week. So as a result of that, all of our town meetings got postponed. So last week was our first town meeting since December. And at that town meeting, the faculty recognized our senior student of the month, and that young man was Jevin Smith. If you remember, Jevin was here with Mr. MacArthur and some young men who presented the table that they created in Woodshop. Jevin was recognized for being the gentleman who was always, no matter who you are, the person there to help, and always had a big smile. So we congratulate Jevin. Jevin is the son of Albert and Jaylyn Smith. I said that correct. Speaking of town meeting, our next town meeting is actually next Wednesday. We've moved it from a Thursday to a Wednesday because we've invited in the district attorney, who was postponed because of snow in January. So she is coming next Wednesday at about 10 minutes to 9. We'll do our Student of the Month presentation. And are we doing a bus, WPS?
We're hopeful to, yes.
And then DA Maloney will be speaking to the student body. So if you are interested in attending that, we would welcome you. Junior Miss Kerrigan Inazuski auditioned last fall and was selected to perform at the KV Chorus. That concert was in late January at Lawrence High School. I was there because my youngest daughter, was 2 students away. It was a beautiful performance, and I know Kerrigan and my youngest Trista hit it off and had a great time together. So, and Kerrigan is the daughter of Lauren and Crystal and Zuski. Now we have, I can put my glasses on, read my script here. We have always putting out information for students to enter contests, and we had 2 students who contributed to the 2020 Maine Region Scholastic Arts Awards and Art Program, and 2 students were recognized. The first one was Sophia Blanco. She received an honorable mention for her piece titled Family Portrait. Excellent art skills there. I'm not sure, well no, I won't go there. The next piece that was recognized It is a Gold Key Award winner, and that is, yep, I'm going to get the wrong Smith. I don't look at this. Jacob Smith, and it's titled Abandoned Chairlift. It's a picture that he took, and I'm assuming it's up on Sugarloaf. It's a beautiful, and this doesn't do it justice, I can tell you. We really need to see the actual photograph. And you can.
In the library at the high school, they have both on display.
There we go. Awesome. And the last piece of information is on Ian Dow. Ian did a documentary last spring, and Ian has been entering it in several contests. He has received recognition in the Winthrop Portland Youth Film Festival, the Best Documentary for Maine Student Film and Video Festival, the Best Young Filmmaker 2019 Maine Outdoor Film Festival, and winner at the University of Maine Documentary Film Festival. So it's a great piece. I don't know if you have seen it, but we want to show it to you this evening.
Wow.
Thank you. And the last piece I have is hopefully my goal. I say hopefully because we're still working out our bugs without report cards because I changed the end of the quarter. Sierra Communication has assured me that everything is ready to go. I just need to get the student grades that they receive from their online classes from KDCC, UMA, as well as virtual high school grades put into the computer system, and then we should be able to print the report cards out either tomorrow or Friday, and I'll be sending them home with a letter of explanation as to why this taking so long. So that's my report. Questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. I didn't forget anybody, right? Okay, good. Here we go. I'll entertain a motion to accept an anonymous donation of $5,000 to support the Winthrop High School boys basketball team.
I'll move that.
Pardon me?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. And I have a second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment to inform the school board as to our vote? Seeing none. Discussion from the school board members.
Great.
Nothing? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. You'll do the thank you note?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the Winthrop Public School FY 2020-2021 school calendar.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment to inform the school board's vote? Seeing none, discussion by the school committee. Mr. Petrosky?
No, that's okay. She'll stick one side, I'll take the other.
Okay. Mr. Shenway.
I don't know if Dr. Rambler, you are going to address the comments. Do you want to do that first?
Stop. I was coached at the beginning of the meeting some hour and a half ago. So this is how the coaching goes.
Okay.
You all noticed in your packets that you have comments
Yes.
about.
Thank you for those.
Yeah.
That was very helpful.
Yes,
it was.
And so, given those comments, I was wondering, Dr. Brown, if you have any thoughts about some of those comments as regards our calendar.
Well, as a matter of fact, I do. Where we got here. So, given the feedback, and just as an aside, I think your feedback loop with impact forms is working pretty well. You know, people are starting to get in the habit of whether it's a policy or calendar to go to that vehicle to give you feedback. And then we get a really nice presentation of how the feedback is grouped. I talked with the administrators on Tuesday, looked at the feedback, and would recommend that we make some modifications to the draft that you have in front of you. One is that we make September 4th, which is currently a non-student day, a student day. The second is to return to the schedule that we have this year in terms of Monday and Tuesday would be the staff in-service days for returning staff. So that would be the 31st and the 1st of September. And then for new staff, it would be the 28th of August. And then the first student day would be the 2nd. I did talk to Nick, who is the director of CATSI this afternoon, just to make sure we're still within the window. Matt, you're right, it's 5 days. CATSI doesn't return to school. Augusta, the way they step their beginning. So while the first might be a day for them, it's a day for K through 9. And so the CATSI kids won't go until Tuesday the 2nd. So the 4th would be a day that would be out of sync, but with that, we're okay having kids there on the 2nd.
When's the first one?
2. So that would be my recommendations to you, to make the 4th a student day, to make that Monday and Tuesday workshop days, and to make the 2nd the first student day.
Much less broken up.
Yes.
Comments? Mr. Petrosky?
I like that. I hope that wasn't offensive to someone.
No. Your comment?
No, in fact, it would have ruined her presentation.
No, I'm still catching up writing, so.
Any additional comments?
Yes.
Michelle?
So this year, one of the comments was that our last student day is June 18th this year, and I know that includes, and in the proposed calendar, not this year, excuse me. And that includes the 5 snow days, but of course we used our 5 snow days already this year. So that is rather late, is what the comment was being made. And for me, regardless of because Labor Day in the last couple of years has been that, has made it so that we go back to school, whether it's workshop days or not, we go back to school that 3rd week or that last week in August. And so I'm wondering if by making the shift to having our first student day be September 2nd, if that is then going to ensure that our students are not going to get out of school until late in June, really late in June. So that's a little concerning to me. And so I almost feel like that we are used to going back to school in that 4th week of August. And so why not, regardless of where Labor Day falls, just continue with that? So I know that there are those
Dissimilar days.
right that we have to worry about. And so at this point, it probably is a lot of work to go back, but that was just one of my thoughts when looking at the comments. And then now with these changes, it seems like we're not taking that comment at all into consideration, that it's already late in the year. Does that make sense?
Do you have a comment to that, Dr. Brown?
What I think we've done is to try to balance everyone's interest in a calendar. It's impossible to fashion a calendar for literally the thousands of kids that are in the Kennebec region. I know other districts have already passed theirs with the dissimilar days as noted. We understand that Labor Day falls late. I didn't see an appetite for coming back, which would be the week of the 24th, if I'm hearing you correctly. I didn't, if the school committee moved it that far back into the summer, I think people would object to having their summer shortened that way.
In other words, we're not going to please everyone.
Yes.
Stop it. If you can get the button pushed in.
So does making that a student day then need to adjust the last day of school as well? Just no, if
I don't think so, because it's, right, so Connie, Friday the 4th is now a student day.
Right, so when you take one off the end, if they only have to go 175 days and you're adding a student day?
No, because we're starting.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't get that.
I know,
Oh,
I
good
obviously
service.
couldn't either, so thank you.
I'm usually pretty articulate, but it's okay.
Any other comments?
Just another clarification, so the 28th of August is going to be the new staff workshop day?
Yes.
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 Any others? You ready to vote? All in favor of, I guess I shouldn't read this.
It really needs to amend.
As amended?
Yeah.
Good luck.
All in favor of adopting the Winthrop Public Schools FY 2020-2021 school calendar as amended? Motion passes 5-0 as amended. So, good luck.
Yes.
Pardon me? Who moved that and seconded it?
The
Oh, I have that in my
original
notes.
motion, Mr. Petrosky moved it.
No, I did.
Oh,
Kristen and Jana.
sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
Which one did you, oh, you did the last one. Sorry.
It's okay, I was just trying to. I'll give it up.
Public comment. Anybody out there have any public comments? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we'll move on. School committee member, open forum. Mr. Dykett?
Congratulations to all the sports teams, the coaches, the kids, the families, the town. Thank you to our community services, police, fire, and ambulance, who once again paraded our kiddos in a couple of times. It's very much appreciated that they come out in the middle of the night to do that. Congratulations to the Nordic girls, and thank you for bringing that up, Joy. Had sort of seen it somewhere, but wasn't really quite sure what they had won, so that's awesome. A new program is being offered to our students 3 through 8th grade, and hopefully they're getting literature out to middle school and grade school. It's called Pedal Power, and for $25, girls in grades 3 through 8 can sign up. It's under Winthrop Plays Outdoors, and they will be trained with bike riding from Amy Larson and Casey Bowden. And it's open to area girls, but it's going to be centered in Winthrop. So that's pretty cool, and they get a bike and they get all of that to use for the program. It's a $25 registration fee, but there's also scholarships available. So it's pretty cool. And something I just also wanted, also thank you to, and I know a lot of other people were there as well, but Joel and Mark, from Mr. Campbell and Mr. Snowden, for all of your time spent at the tournaments. You know, you have your regular jobs and that's outside of that, and I know there's nowhere else you'd rather be, but you weren't there just to watch the games. I know you guys are sort of on the clock when you do that stuff too, so thank you for your time. And one other thing, because I know spring is coming soon, we somewhat talked, and I had a conversation about Joel sort of on the side about the possibility of getting goats for our poison ivy.
This is a new one for our superintendent.
And I am more than willing to help or reach out or make contact, and I know Joel had looked into it maybe a couple of years ago or something. I don't want to speak for you, but a couple of other towns have done it. They did it in Daring Park, but around our football field and our softball field and our soccer field and baseball field, if we could get some of those goats in there, yeah, and I don't know what the possibility, I don't even know what it would take to do that, but maybe if we could look into that somehow.
Give me a name.
Yeah, I don't,
What did you say?
Mark Arsenal has good.
Mark Arsenal, I don't know if Craig Hickman has goats too.
Mark.
Mark owns goats?
Yeah, why don't you?
So, yeah, so,
That is a curse word.
I love
If I can help you at all, call me, let me know.
You can again, you can put that on your resume.
Go get it.
Mr. Petrosky?
I would echo all the congratulations that you made regarding all the teams and coaches, parents, etc. I also want to include the girls' hockey team. We had two young ladies, Maddie Weymouth and also Kristen Ross, who played for St. Dom's this year. And
Ross.
Abby Ross, well.
Kristen's the mom, like me.
Yeah, Kristen's the mom, yeah, okay. In any case, I was close. and they really were tremendous additions to the team. Maddie in particular was probably the most improved of all. To watch somebody go from a field hockey goalie to basically getting on skates and be an effective defensive person, including in some of the late games because of injuries, she was forced to step up and be one of only 3 defensive people in the hockey games. She played a lot of minutes out there. And of course, she did score in the semifinal game. She took a shot and scored the first goal of that game, which was just a tremendous shot. And that was from the point, basically. So I actually ended up going to a number of those games. And I was really pleased with the reception that the St. Dom's people gave to our participation in particular. I'm always worried that sometimes when our students go to other teams, that the other team will dominate and they won't perhaps get their opportunity. But that was not the case. Kudos to their coaches who really did an outstanding job of bringing these girls into it. And I think both of them were very improved. They unfortunately did lose that semifinal game, but I wasn't too discouraged with that because they played really, really well. In fact, the Portland Press Herald at one time, when they do these varsity listings of the top teams in the state, had this girls team as number 5. And that's not, they may have played in B, but no, actually, well, whatever, there's 3 divisions in there, but they were number 5 of all 3 divisions until they lost their team in the semifinals, which I thought was pretty impressive. I'm also following in Lewiston, which maybe some of you are too, but low scores in Lewiston has become a major issue. And of course, Lewiston this year changed its superintendent, changed some of its principals, but they are very concerned and devoting a lot of attention to try to figure out why their scores are at the level they're at. And of course, we've talked about that, and we have always had concerns too, but now we have a neighboring school which has put that at the highest level.
Well, Richmond thinks that they'll withdraw from it. I think because of one of the reasons they're low scores.
Well, listen, I could tell you a long story on that. My cardio rehab person, okay, is involved in that very much so. But they're very serious, and obviously they had enough votes taken yesterday in the election so they could keep moving. And they allocated $50,000, I believe, to Richmond to continue this. I also want to just make a comment about the crowd at the state finals, because it was so gratifying to see so many alumni there. And I reminded my kids that they were not there, but some of their friends were there, okay? But that's what you want to see, I think, when you get into a state's game, is just to see. And as some of you know, I arrived a little late because the luggage wouldn't come off my plane from Florida. But as I went through Winthrop, I said, there's nobody here. It really was quiet. And that was quite obvious when we got there, Joel.
I just wanted to share with you, speaking of the alumni, the 1989-90 team, state girls team brought flowers to the girls before the game at the high school before they left. So there was quite a few alumnus that saw them off also.
Paul Rayham was quite proud that his daughter Missy was one of those alumni that was able to come back for that game. But that was great. And I would mention, this is not a criticism of our current superintendent, but our future superintendent attended many of those games, including the state finals. And he enjoyed it tremendously. And so that was good too, as well as giving him a chance to talk with a lot of people from Winthrop. And finally, it's kind of a sad note, but then on the other hand, it's a positive note too. When I came to Winthrop High School in 1971, my immediate mentor was TDOS, which stood for Douglas Stevenson, who Ginny knows and Meg knew. And I'm not sure we actually had chairman of the department, but he was as good a chairman as you could find. And also gave me an introduction to his family, of which, of course, I did have his son John in class and appeared as John Adams when we produced the play 1776. And I also got to know his son David very well because his children and my children played hockey together. And I also understand that the older Doug and Gray, just one more I'm forgetting here, all attended and graduated from Winthrop High School too. So tremendous family, gave a lot to the school in many different ways. But last night, the matriarch passed away. 102 years old. Yeah. What a wonderful person she was too. And a lot of fun, a lot of spirit. I really believed in her children and everybody's children. So I mentioned that because for me anyway, she was a tremendous friend. And I've enjoyed in the last few years that John literally brought her every Saturday or Sunday to Winthrop, drove her around, and you could run into her at Cumberland Farms. It was just, but that's just a great family. So, and very important to Winthrop as well.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the administrators, all of you for your hours and hours and hours, countless hours, putting together that budget. It's really very nicely constructed, really appreciate it. We'll do the best job we can this summer. You all get a chance to help.
I just wanted to comment on the floor hockey. My daughter has so thoroughly enjoyed that, so I thank you for giving her that opportunity.
In addition to everything that was already noted this evening, I just want to wish the one axe to break a leg, and I look forward to hearing. I'm not able to attend the actual competition, so I look forward to seeing it when it's in the community. But I look forward to hearing how you all do. And no, you guys are going to do amazingly. And one other thing that I wanted to bring up, I know we talked a lot about the basketball game, but what struck me the most was how awesome our high school students are and welcoming our younger students to be part of the student section. And I know that we were noted in, I don't know if it was one of the newspaper's blogs or if it was an actual article in the paper about how we have one of the greatest student sections because they call them our pre-students are allowed to be part of that, and they're embraced, and then they're made to feel so welcome. So I feel like that's a testament to not only our community but our coaches that instill that value in our current athletes to go down and help out in our rec programs, and I feel like that is really bringing, helping to bring our community together. So I just wanted to say that I really, really liked seeing that at the games, on top of all of the wonderful athletes.
Just on the student side of things, some other stuff going on in the high school. We also have a badminton tournament going on. It's during WINS, and it'll be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, double elimination, doubles. We can ask if some of you guys want to join. Anyway, but that's going on. And then also we have March Madness next week, which is like our little winter carnival. We have a dance on Thursday, another 80s themed dance. There's some miscommunication in there, but we love the 80s themed dance. Black lights, 6 to 9. Anyway, and also we have lots of dress-up days, like Maynard Monday, Twin Tuesday, USA Wednesday, Teacher Lookalike Thursday, and House Color Friday, which this year, or well, also from last year, Student Council and like the faculty, we decided to not split the classes up. Instead, we joined multiple homerooms from the 4 grade levels, and so we have houses like Pisgah, Cobussy, other ones. It's kind of recent, so I'm not really familiar with all the names right at the moment. But So that's lots of fun. So it's like wear out your house color, and that's the day that we have all of our events. Should be pretty fun if you guys want to drop by and watch some sumo wrestling or human bowling.
So tell me again when this is?
This will be on Friday. Which
Next Friday or tomorrow?
Next Friday.
The 20th.
So next week. Yeah.
So today's,
Yeah.
so the 19th.
Yeah, so the 13th, yeah, because the dance is the Thursday, which is the 12th. Anyway, if you guys want to shop around.
Thank you. I entertain a motion.
Just one more thing.
I'm going to put a time on
I'm sorry. I'll stay away longer next time. But I've just got to say this. I've got somewhat of a background in marketing communications, and I've watched for years in the papers how at tournament time, they put a picture in, you say some nice words and stuff like that. I think this community really took the award this year with Charlie's insert. That to me is a collector's edition. And I can tell you that it was nice to see Kenner in there and others, but that was very impressive. And the full color back and forth, and I certainly appreciate what they did.
Piggyback on more. Also, former Winthrop alum Adam Pravanta did some exceptional films on the boys and girls basketball, and they won the South Regionals. And then Ian Dow and Adam did filming for the state game as well. Those videos, I mean, beyond professionally done. What a treasure for those kids to have forever. So very fortunate that we have alumni that still stick around and come back and help us out. So, and Sandy Steele and Darcy Baird with their photographs that they take and document all that for families is pretty cool.
Thank you.
How about all the shirts and
Just
everything?
about it.
Yes, my colleagues are probably going to hate me because we've all been going after since 6:30.
Yeah.
I didn't have all the names this morning. I didn't have all the names earlier, and I didn't want to skip this, but there is also the McDonald's All-Stars this weekend on Saturday, and we had, I spaced it on the boys, that was my problem. We have 3 for the boys, 3 for the girls. They have Jevin Smith, Cam Hasey, and Ryan Baird. And for the girls, we have Aaliyah, Wilson Falcone, Kenna Souza, and Jillian Schmelzer. They'll all be playing. It's quite an honor, and to have 3 is even a bigger honor because it is only 12. And Aaliyah and Cam also were players of the tournament MVPs, which is also a great honor. So I didn't want to miss that opportunity, but I also didn't want to totally screw it up. So thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Soon.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, everyone.